Alright, so we're on to game 5 of this match. It turns out I've caught 2 of the games. I caught games 2 and 4. Akiyama is switching with his hand. I actually think this might be a hand Vid has used before, but not in a game I caught. 1373 and 3 still looks like a problem, though. Okay, 7458 gives nice coverage, though it's a little disappointing for 7458 it never is 2. It also might be really excited to land an 8 or 9. Actually, 7458 and 9 is safe, is it not? It is safe. That's very interesting. 9835 can't use the elements quite as effectively. But 2588 having 1 and 2 makes it more likely to be a sweeper at the end. Same for 9835 with 2 and 3. But Ifrit and 9 is a really big threat, and we can immediately see Akiyama not go with his normal starter in 3, but instead play to block the square. On the other hand, nope, 7458 is not safe in 8 because of 1987. I can do plus wall. I'm awake. Of course, there is also 7458 in 6, right? This is a card that is going to line up well in those squares on the bottom right due to the elementals. What happens if 7458 and 6? Something bad for vid here is if, say, 1373 and 8, then you don't have 9835 grabbing safety and 7. And if you don't have that, maybe it's not so good. Maybe it's not so good. You don't really have a card you're that excited to put in 3. Okay, okay. So another thing you could do is you could start in 7. I'm not sure which card, but you could start in 7 and say, okay, if you block 8, then I can play 7458 and 6. And there's only one card you can block 8 with, I think, that hinders that. But to do that, to set up 5 against 7458, you'd have to use A8, 5, 6, and 8, and you probably don't want to use that card that early. I'm probably in good shape if you do. So there's some case for going in 7. I think it's a little awkward. I think the 9835 lines up really badly against the 1987 here, and that makes everything a bit trickier than it should be. Another move is, of course, 1-4. No, that's not as good. I don't like the combination of the low levels in Vid's hand. They don't give, like, inherent play together in an obvious way to me. Hmm. Just thinking. So, let's say Vid played in 5 again. No, the hand's not that well aligned to the right. Hmm. Yeah, it's really a problem that anytime 9835 lands in 4 or 7, 1987 just kills it. So maybe you gotta get rid of 4. That's so crazy? 1463 and 4? Just getting rid of squares that, like, each time I calculate a line, I'm like, okay, we go 5. They go, you know, we're trying to set up going in 6. If we go in 6 after, they go 8. Do we have 7? No, we don't have 7. That's covered by 4. That kind of thing leads me to think maybe you just block 4. Get rid of 4. Not so absurd. Because if you do block 4, then your 9835's 8 to the right is really good, right? 1463 in 4 and 9835 landing in 1 or 7 is a I guess 1373 covers 1, but 1373 probably comes out of Akiyama's hand fairly quickly. Alright, Vid has sent some messages. I should not read people's messages while I record. that would be bad form unless they are obviously uh, worth doing. He does suggest the pattern of the games has been at the start, Vid doesn't really know what to do, which makes sense with the we only caught part of game 2 of the match, but we caught all of game 4, and Vid's 5873 and 5 was very much clearly a having difficulties move. I do like the idea of 1463 in 4. You cover anything in 7. If they go in 1, you play in 7. You start thinking about going in 6 next. Might have played. I'm not sure. I think defending is tough. I think this is a tough rule set to defend on. And I think Vid has done a good job so far. If I was gonna take the starter, I was gonna just go for it and take. I think I'd play. That's not really a good way to do it, is there? Unless you want to play 7, 4, 5, 8, and 6, but I don't trust that. It's probably fine, but I don't trust it. Though maybe. Nah. I was thinking, if you play 7, 4, 5, 8, and 6, and Akiyama goes 1, 3, 7, 3, and 8, and you play 9, 8, 3, 5 in 7, if 1, 9, 8, 7, and 4, you can play 1, 4, 6, 3, and 5, and you're probably okay. Are you even though? No, probably not. Alright. Another of Vid clearly doesn't find a clean plan and makes a move. But making a move has uses, right? Any card that comes out of Akiyama's hand might prove a concession. But I think the question is, how does 1373 get used? Because that's probably what we're going to see here. Now, some of my instinct is to play 1373 and 7. Say, I am on first turn, and the more cards we play that are just easy for me to take, my A856 has every capture on the board. I'm just going to play to leave everything available for it to take at the end. So something like 1373 and 7 makes a bunch of logical sense to me. You can also try to force the action by going in 2, 4, 6, or 8. And Akiyama, when I was doing some style numbers to try to get stuff, I noticed Akiyama had a very high rate, relatively speaking, of forcing the action in these opposite corner structures. But also that his results in opposite corner structures were worse than his other results. Now, it was all small samples, so I wasn't sure if that was because of actual weakness there or because just happened to have like bad randoms or difficult opponents in those games. It's hard to say. But I did notice both. If I remember right, this was a while ago that I was looking at this. I should have kept notes and like scouted people properly, but I have access to so much more information than everyone else does. Um, that would probably be somewhat bad form, but I do remember something popping out there of a potential weakness in this direction. I did a deep dive on Turd's potential weaknesses because we were talking a bit about it, and I thought it would be interesting to see if we could explore, and not so much on anyone else. But I do remember, yeah, something about opposite corners here. The sad thing about Turds for me was he plays such a variety of stuff, we didn't have big samples in any particular types of structures or openings, and so it ended up being really hard to say much, even though he has played a lot of competitive games because he goes far in like every tournament. But I think my guess is Akiyama is looking for a way to force the action. Now, anything in 2 feels like it's just giving up a whole bunch of stuff. The one upside is 1463 cannot recapture there. And in any of the others of 4, 6, or 8, 1463 is a viable capturer of the now surrounded corner card. So I think there's a real case that if you're gonna play in the sides, 2 is the most logical of them. It also does not give up safety in 3. A856 covers that. But I would be feeling 3, 5, or 7 here. And I think I'd just be thinking the weak corner. And I haven't looked if like 1987 happens to land really well in 2, but it doesn't. Or 7538 happens to land really well in 6, which it might. But if you play 7538 and 6, you're probably getting hit by 1463 and 8. And how excited about that are you? Like, you found a card that's close to safe, and. But it's hard to play even next to it. That doesn't seem very appealing. Okay. As I say that, he goes there. Um, so, first instinct is 1463 and 8. Seven, 4, 5, 8, and 8 is still comboed, and there's not going to be redemption there. Do you have a big setup in 2? I don't see it. I got some messages. So Vid thinks Akiyama's hands have been good, except for the one Akiyama stole from Vid. That one was worse. I do think that Akiyama has had a good feel for the hands. So the main moves here are 2, 3, and 8. And if you go in 2, you really want to set up something in 5, and nothing does. So we can, I think, discard 2. If you go in 3, you really don't want to be hit by a combo, or you need it to set up 5. So there's like a case for 2, 5, A8, and 3, in that like if A8, 5, 6 lands in 2, 7, 4, 5, 8 has 5, but I don't believe it. I think if you go 2, yeah. I mean, sorry, if you go 3, 3 looks uncomfortable. So I'm kind of left with just like, you go 8 here, and whatever happens, happens. Notably, you have 7 covered, right? That 2 facing down helps 2, 5, A8 cover anything in 7. Now, 5 can be dangerous there, but I don't know how scary that can be. I think you go 8 here, and you're gonna hold this game. I probably shouldn't send message to Vid while he's thinking. Gonna be a tricky rule set to handle. Yeah. So of the 4 games, it sounds like Vid said he played really well in one of them, but that was one I didn't catch. Seems like Akiyama has had the edge. And here again, I was looking, for ways to press with Akiyama, right? When I'm looking to play in 6 or 7 or wherever here, it's all looking like, do I think this move can win me the game? Not, okay, we got to find a tie, right? Vid has been the player much more in, we have to find a tie mode. But 1463 looks like our tie for today. There's all kinds of squares. Akiyama's a very creative player. He sees possibilities. I do not. He might have something cooked up in 2 or 4 or something, but I am. It's hard to be too worried here. I would note 2-5 A8 landing in 2 in the endgame. Like if you go in 8 and kind of the bottom of the board fills up, 2-5 A8 landing in 2 is never comboed, which is really important. Now, it doesn't always take. Actually, A856 has a plus in 5. I did not consider that. That could change things. Because it could be. I was assuming 25A8 landing in 2 was guaranteed a capture of 5, and then would never be comboed back. Um, in fact, it can't be taken back by 3. No, it can, because A856 gets the plus in 3 as well. So, but A856 can't land in both 3 and 5. I should have seen those pluses. That's a really bad sign for my game that I didn't check Akiyama's cards there and didn't realize those could be highly relevant, because it means there is a recapture from 3 on 2. There is a capture, I mean, and that 5 can also be safe to 2. That 2-3-5 sort of triangle there is going to be really critical to how this game goes, I think. But I think 1-4-6-3 and 8, again, not calculating anything super deep, because elemental is a huge pain to calculate, and if it's not my game, you know, putting in that work is you know, they don't pay me the big bucks, right? They don't pay me anything. So yeah, I think 8 is the natural square. There's also 4. 4 is a square other people like a lot more than I do. I tend not to play 4. I don't know why this position 4 would appeal. I think 4 gives a kind of free chance to use 1-3-7-3 somewhere, specifically, most likely in 5, but somewhere, and leave them with 2 powerful cards for the endgame. But also to play in 2 is even more likely, I guess, if you go 4. 4 requires very specific calculation, and there's so many moves that can be good against it that I tend to be very skeptical of it, even though 4 is about as likely to tie as the other squares I mentioned, 2, 3, and 8. But it's much harder, I think, to play it well, even though it technically works. That's my practical view on moves in 2. Yeah, I haven't seen the problem with 8, so I'm still on 8. And I'm surprised the time has run down this far, actually. Vid obviously uses time a lot more than Akiyama, but I don't see other options. Now, if he has looked at 8 and decided it's bad, then this is a real panic spot. And that may have happened. Okay. Now, this looks to me like Akiyama now has really significant winning chances again. And maybe Vid saw something wrong with 8, right? Again, I wasn't like, maybe 5 looked like a problem or something. Or 2 or 4 or 7. Something spooked him there, right? So 7. Now 7 is safe to 8, but it is not safe to 4. Hmm. Oh, I am so skeptical. So okay, let's go simple. 1-3-7-3-8. What happens? Still 5-5. But my point is, if Vid puts anything in 4, Akiyama takes it with 1-9-8-7 and 5, leads 6-4, and A856 sweeps the endgame sufficiently. The +1 and 3, again, super relevant, because that means 2-5-A8 isn't safe in 2. If 1-3-7-3 in 8 and you go in 5, then 1-9-8-7 lands in 4, and that looks like, how can that not be game? Unless you set up some weird combo, but I don't see how you could have. A bunch of Brotherhood of Seed players have played this kind of setup with opposite corners. Someone goes next to it and they play in the free corner, meaning the corner not touching anything. Not that it's like free to be safe or anything. And each game it's kind of gone badly. Midas did it against Seto in the Nephilim finals, and that was a losing move. And we've seen it a bit, and it really hasn't played out well. Yeah, 1373 has been picked up. I think it's going to land in 8. I guess there's a chance it lands in like 3, but I don't see why it would. Yeah, 8 is played. And I think that's game. I think that's game. I wonder what the problem was with 8. It's possible there wasn't one, but it's very possible there was. Like, something scared someone there. Or, or very different intuitions, right? Because my intuition is 2, 3, or 8, and 4 or 7 are the 4, 7, and 5 are the squares you're really trying not to play in. But it could be that someone values 7 in that structure a lot, and thus a move that looked reasonable in 7 is more appealing than a move that looked reasonable in 8. But that's so unlikely, right? 8 is just a much better square in general. So I think something specific there must have been scary. But it looked very appealing because it gets a weak card out of the hand while locking something in. And I think that's a lot of upside. And maybe it didn't work. Um, but from my perspective, a little bit confusing. Okay, so I didn't look at 2 and 3 here. But anything in 4 is met by 19875. That's pretty simple to check. Anything in 5 is met by 19874. I think anything in 3 is met by 88562. And anything in 2 is met by 8563. Yeah, this is a very easy endgame type to calculate out. Am I missing anything big? Can 2 set up 5? Don't see it. 1987 and 2 doesn't set up 5 when it lands there, so you can't go 3 forcing 2 and then you have a 5 setup. Yeah, I think that's it. Interesting match. I think this is a tough rule set. I was suspicious of 6 because I thought 8 worked. But my guess here is 8 was a little scarier than I thought. My bet is 8 tied, but there was something worrisome there because time running down to like 10 seconds and going in 7 to me indicates didn't find anything that looked at all comfortable. And that means 8 was discarded. And I don't know why 8 was discarded. It's possible you think you were that lines were ending up with like A8, 5, 6, and 7 forces 2, 5, A8 to come out of the hand, and then 1987 sweeps up top. But you still have 9835 in your hand, and maybe you can get that to land in 2, where at least it's not comboed. Oh, it is comboed. Everything's comboed up top. Maybe the problem there was 1987 sweeps up top, and that can be set up in a way that's forced. Yeah, actually, maybe that did lose. Oh, very interesting. Okay. 1463 and 8. No, but if A856 lands in 7, you don't have to take the combo immediately. But I do think taking the combo immediately did lose. Okay, so there was a legit problem there. And I still suspect it tied, but it was not straightforward. Oh, and I'm very foolish. Because 8, 5, 6, and 2 did set up 5. 3 met by 2 did set up 5. Now, this wins for Akiyama, but my calculation there was, again, quite suspicious. Okay, congrats to Akiyama. I think a nicely played match. And I think 8 was a lot more dangerous than I was giving it credit for, though I still think it has to have been the best try. But 6 turned out to be really good. Difficult calculation, though. to c6, 8, and I do think the plan was a8, 5, 6, and 7, walking into the same. But if the same is taken, and maybe it can be delayed in a useful way, but if the same is taken by 2, 5, a8, I guess 1, 3, 7, 3 doesn't flip something. I'm not seeing this properly. Calculation is hard. Sadly, this won't be a 9-1. The only classy way to lose. It's going to be an 8-2. And yeah, interesting games. Congrats to Akiyama, who will play the winner of myself versus Delial in what looks to be a good match. Yeah, very interesting game. Defense is tough, is my main takeaway. It's really hard to defend these second turn spots. Just looks really difficult to do. A lot of unpleasant decisions where the cards don't line up well. And maybe that's because Akiyama is playing very, very strongly. But it looks to me difficult to make moves where you're like, yes, I feel comfortable with this move. I think second turn is going to prove really difficult on this rule set. Very interesting games.